update. So I begin by, what is Avalon? Avalon is a Samvera solution bundle for audio and video access. So it's an access platform that's designed to be an easy way for people to get content up. It offers easy transcoding, very granular access control for teaching and learning restrictions or licensing restrictions, and a lot of features that at least we try to make it nice for media on the web. So we've been supported by grants in the past from the Mellon Foundation, IMLS, and our latest release is Avalon 7.4. But first I'm going to do Avalon team update. So welcome Emily, please. Emily Linema is our new head of digital media software development at IU Libraries. So please say hello if you haven't met her yet. It's been great to have her. She's taken on Maria's former position that was open in our department. I think at Virtual Connect, I sort of had a posting for it, but we're very excited to have Emily in that role. So the Avalon team as it stands here, you can see Emily is again taking over Maria's position. So she's kind of the scrum master, but also helping to do a lot more with Avalon in the community as well. Otherwise, it's all of us there. Okay, so one new thing in Avalon is, let's see, the wiki migration. So this had been done over the summer, but for a long time, the official Avalon documentation was in a IU Libraries hosted Confluence instance. And there were a lot of references to it. And so the big thing was basically getting a dump of that and loading it up into our Samvera Confluence so we could have our documentation here in the community. So everything is fully migrated now. In addition to migrating over to Samvera Confluence, we cleaned up a lot of the organization of the documents themselves. So a little bit you can see on the left, but it's more targeted toward, so you can see installation and configuration, documentation, and then technical documentation. So things have been cleaned up a lot, and all of our links and everything has been updated. So please go check it out if you haven't. And I'm really happy that we were able to do that in the community. All right. So what's new in Avalon? Our latest release, Avalon 7.4, was in July. So this one was mainly dependency updates. So probably not a surprise to a lot of people here. But Rails 6, Bootstrap and Blacklight updates, those are fairly time intensive. There were a lot of breaking changes and customizations that we had done. So it was a big release to get all our dependencies up to date and keep that rolling, especially because we have a lot of Avalon instances out there. Other updates were a lot of performance updates to the Manage Users page. The Manage Users page, is an instance of the Persona library. And let's see. And so we've just added things to make that sort of management easier. And especially, you sort of hit those things as it scales. And we in Media Collections Online have like a lot of users. Let's see what else. Yeah, so Google Drive, we also added the ability to have it as a source alongside other file system options. It was one or the other before. And then we also increased some sanitization options for file names during post-processing in this case, where there's an extra hook where you can set up different sanitization options. And so this is part of really a drive to keep things going to make Avalon, I guess, as less brittle as possible and really make it so you can sort of throw anything in there and have it be processed as you like. So what we're working on now, next release will be Avalon 7.5. The big one here is controlled digital lending. So this is a feature that we've been working on that I'm going to talk a little bit more about. But we've also been working on performance increases. So in particular, loading pages with a lot of sections in Avalon has always been a little bit slow. And so there's been some excellent work on our team to get that really, really going faster. So the time to first byte is incredibly increased, especially for objects which have a lot of children. And the other thing we've got is video support in Timeliner. So the Timeliner is a port of the variations Timeliner. I've noted it here many times. But before, even though you had a video stream in the Timeliner, it would only show an audio player. So now you can actually do those Timeliner annotations on a video and have the video display in line as well. So that's a really cool update. So controlled digital lending, yeah, we're working with Michigan State University to implement this functionality in Avalon. So I'm going to talk about this more on a lightning talk on Thursday. But essentially it is excuse me, access limited to a single user at a time. So it's sort of that model where you have to borrow an item to actually get access to the media stream. And let me take a look at this. So I've got a couple of screenshots here. These are a little early. But as you can see, like now you would go to a media item, it'll prompt you to log in or it'll ask you to borrow. And once you've borrowed the item, the stream will actually authorize. And then we also have a page here where users can manage all of their checkouts, and then administrators as well can return or edit those. So IIIF community work we continue to do. There's been some community work, particularly to improve interoperability. So testing different manifests from different providers for different consumers. So in this case, working to update our manifest generation parsing, we have multiple things that use IIIF now. So we have the timeliner in Avalon, manifests that are coming from objects in Avalon, and then the Avalon IIIF media player. So we have a lot of sort of things to work on in terms of making sure that everything in the community is as interoperable as possible. And especially with presentation 3, it's kind of a new thing, and there's been a lot of implementation sort of goes there. Let's see. So what's next? Avalon and Hyrax, we're still working on this. So we're reevaluating the initial work that we had done years ago and thinking about what will our approach be. So we still want to look at this, especially in terms of community alignment, making sure we're all using the same libraries. But there are many strategies and ways that we could go about it. How are we going to estimate the work? So this is a big project that we're currently working on organizing, and we've been going through evaluating Hyrax, evaluating our own approach, and basically trying to plan this out and see how we can get this going in the future. So you can get in touch with us. The Avalon channel in Samvera Slack is public. And then we have a mailing list, and of course on our website. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. So I guess we have 5. Okay, well, I guess I'm not sure your questions or not. I think we'll just go to the next update and we'll throw in questions at the end. So next up would be the Hyrax update, which is Julie Hardesty.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, it's going to be Julie Hardesty and Daniel Pierce. So let me share my screen. And all right, is that working?
Yeah, that works great. Okay. We can see it.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Hardesty. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a metadata analyst at Indiana University. I'm the current Hyrax product owner, and along with Daniel Pierce, programmer analyst also at Indiana University, and currently the Hyrax technical lead, we invite you to join us on a little journey through the Hyrax community update, which is apparently going to include a lot of images of the outdoors and nature, because it just seemed to be very soothing when we were putting this together. So we both work at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and Daniel and I are speaking with you today from the ancestral homelands of the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people. The work we're doing as the Samvera community should serve to support and uplift the needs of displaced Indigenous communities in the same ways we work to be inclusive and welcoming to all who want to contribute to Samvera software and participate in this community. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge where we are in the pandemic and what has occurred over the last 2 years. It happens to coincide with much of my time as Hyrax product owner, but this moment we are in now seems like a slight turning point in a pandemic that has been deeply traumatic in varying ways for everybody. It's been hard to deal with and live through regardless of your situation. There are enough of us gathered here that I think it is probably true that many of us know someone or love someone who is no longer here due to the pandemic. And it might seem a little jarring to talk about this during a slide deck on software development, but our collective reality is that we have made it through something. And in this part of our lived experience, we've made it through that together. We're not completely out of the pandemic either, but the fact that we are all still here and still coming together as the Samvera community means something that I think is special and should be recognized. I am certainly glad that you all are here. And if this is your first Samvera Connect, welcome to our community. You found a wonderful group of people, and I am even more glad that you are here. And one more thing that I cannot let go by without saying something about is the fact that our meeting this year turned virtual, not because of the pandemic, but due to legislative decisions made by the state of Indiana, the state in which Daniel and I both live. The legislature's decision to pass a law that bans transgender girls from playing sports on girls' teams is discriminatory and has caused at least one state to ban state-supported travel to Indiana. We were going to hold this meeting in person at the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana, but I'm so thankful that this community centered its members and recognized that conducting our meeting here would mean we don't find transgender lives and concerns important enough. LGBTQ+ rights are BIPOC rights, which are neurodivergent rights, which are women's rights, which are accessibility rights, which are all, in fact, human rights. And none of us can be our complete selves until we all can be our complete selves. So I am very glad we are meeting virtually for Samvera Connect this year, and thank you all again for being here. And now a little introductory information about Hyrax. Hyrax is a software engine built using Ruby on Rails that can generate a digital repository application for discovery, access, and management of digital collections. And you can see a screenshot there of a Hyrax-based application. And Hyrax are also the cute but fierce animals pictured here that like to hang out around rocks. Within the Hyrax portion of the Samvera community, we have the Hyrax interest group, and it is open to anyone interested in keeping up on or catching up on the latest happenings with Hyrax development work. We regularly discuss maintenance and release work, Valkyrization work, which we'll get to more on that in a minute, and topics like the Hyrax maintenance policy and Newrax, our demo and testing sites that show the latest code changes deployed in a working application. Speaking of the Hyrax maintenance policy, it is still in draft form and not finalized or published yet. I will be completing that work soon, and we'll be bringing that back to the Hyrax interest group for final review. So if you are interested in any of that, the Hyrax interest group meetings occur monthly on the second Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. It's right before the weekly Samvera Tech Call. And our next meeting is November 9th, and I hope that you will consider joining us. As Hyrax product owner, I'm also part of the Hyrax Maintenance Working Group, which is a terrific group of people who work to maintain Hyrax, addressing bugs, and pushing general development work forward. Daniel Pierce, as our Hyrax technical lead, is the main development force behind this working group, and Rebecca Cuddy has been essential to testing issues and running quality assurance on merged pull requests to address known issues. We sprint on a regular 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off schedule, and Jessica Hilt keeps us organized on the calendar so that we know when all of that is happening. You might also see some news on this slide that we will make more of a fuss about here in a minute, and it is not the fact that these are actually meerkats, but yeah. Since Samvera Virtual Connect in May, we released Hyrax 3.4.2, which is our current stable release of Hyrax. It includes an upgrade to Bixby, a pin for the Tiny MCE Rails gem version, and backports for analytics, and some structural changes and dependency updates to keep the 3.x build working. In addition to that release, major efforts in our second cycle of development work from May to August were put towards upgrading Blacklight, Bootstrap, and Rails, similar to what Avalon has gone through. And the 26 issues that were closed on that cycle's GitHub project board were all related to that work. Our current project board for the September to December development cycle is also showing progress with 4 more issues closed already. This work has involved many more people than just those on the Hyrax Maintenance Working Group, and I want to extend a special thanks to Fritz Freiheit and Connor O'Malley from the University of Michigan, Adam Arling and Matt Jordan from Northwestern University, and Ayub Balemli, Brad Watson, and Emily Porter from Emory University for fulfilling the pledges that they made to work on Hyrax this spring and summer. Along with Tamsin Johnson, Margaret Keeby, and Alexander Dunn from UC Santa Barbara, who are always willing to jump in and help out. All of this work is for the version of Hyrax that is built to connect specifically to Fedora 4. Other development efforts that also involve the Hyrax maintenance working group involve changes to allow for connections to other backends, such as Postgres and Fedora 6. That backend work is what we refer to as Valkyrized Hyrax. Valkyrization work for Hyrax was helped along immensely by the recent community effort that occurred in September. Several community members joined the Hyrax maintenance working group, including Anna Marie Close from Ohio State University, John Cameron and Chris Colvard from Indiana University, Gabriela Montoya from UC San Diego, Fritz Freiheit and Jose Blanco from University of Michigan, and Alexander Dunn and Tamsin Johnson from UC Santa Barbara to work through 18 issues on that project board and show through testing on Nurax PG, the demo site we have for Valkyrized Hyrax, that we are more than 3/4 of the way to a fully functioning Valkyrized Hyrax-based web application with a Postgres adapter. That's pretty exciting. A major part of both development efforts, the releases we've already talked about and other releases we'll be discussing today, is the fact that Daniel Pierce came on as Hyrax technical lead beginning in July. He was already a regular participant on the Hyrax maintenance working group and has been able to keep focused time and effort on moving both Hyrax on Fedora 4 and Valkyrized Hyrax moving forward, helping others get involved and facilitating the development work and releases. So thank you, Daniel. And if all of that isn't exciting enough and showing the continued engagement of Samvera community members, I am also happy to introduce the next Hyrax product owner, Rebecca Cuddy, who is the institutional repository librarian at UNC Chapel Hill. You have probably seen and heard her name before associated with Hyrax because she has been part of the Hyrax maintenance working group for 2 years. I'm thrilled to be passing along the product owner role to Rebecca because this is showing that we are overcoming challenges that we experienced previously with the Hyrax product owner role. We're managing development work more smoothly, and we are transitioning people into and out of these roles without burnout and with a lot less frustration. I will be continuing to participate as a member of the Hyrax maintenance working group for the rest of this year, and I will be pledging hours for Samvera work next year as well. So please join me in welcoming Rebecca. And I do have some kind of blue sky thinking that I want to share about the Hyrax product owner role. We recognize the importance of both the technical lead and product owner roles for Hyrax to maintain the software and continue its further development. The community decided recently that the technical lead should be supported with funding for the time spent by the person in that role. And I think we are seeing a difference in time spent more consistently and evenly when it is funded as a portion of a person's schedule versus time spent as a volunteer. As a volunteer in the Hyrax product owner role, I know I've worked this into my schedule as best I can, but I will admit that sometimes that can be kind of last minute. I think the Hyrax product owner role would also benefit from the same type of community funding to ensure consistent and more even time spent on managing and prioritizing the issues and features we work on for Hyrax and engaging in discussion with community stakeholders about what's needed from Hyrax as we continue into the future. So I'm handing this talk over to Daniel Pierce now to go into more details on the work that has been happening and upcoming work that you can be involved in. But I just want to express my gratitude to you all for this experience as Hyrax product owner. I've learned new skills and have really come to appreciate the community that we've developed across institutions and expertise. I am excited to continue participating, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Hyrax continues to develop. So thank you again, and over to you, Daniel.
Oh, thank you, Julie. That was a great introduction. I feel like I don't need to say anything about myself except hello. But yes, I'm Daniel Pierce, the newish Hyrax technical lead since July. So since then, I was just going to give a quick kind of update on where my focus has been. That focus has been on getting Hyrax 4 out, and there's a list of the big features of that release there. You might notice that they're not so coincidentally very similar to the major features that John Cameron just mentioned about Avalon. Blacklight 7, Rails 6, Bootstrap 4. Those all ended up requiring a lot of changes to the application itself in various ways. And we actually did put together the beginnings of some documentation about what to expect during that migration. There's a link to it from the beta 1 release notes for Hyrax 4. Another thing to call out that is coming with Hyrax 4 is a new way of doing nested collection indexing that offloads it to Solar's graph query. Thank you to Chris Colvard for coming up with that idea and implementing it. Yeah, so Hyrax 4 is currently in a beta 2 release that came out about 2 weeks ago. It has a bit more work to be done on it, mainly around some final deprecations or deprecated code that needs to be taken out. But I expect that a release candidate and perhaps an actual release will come out during the next maintenance working group sprint, which I think is next week, starting next week. Yeah, so next slide. Alongside that, as Julie mentioned, has been a lot of work on getting Hyrax to be fully Valkyrieized, as we like to say. She did a great job of going over who contributed to that, so big thank you to everyone who's done that. Couple highlights is we now have, for those that are familiar, there is a test application in Hyrax called Hardesty that allows you to spin up the stack locally in a Docker container very easily. Hardesty is the one that runs with active Fedora and Fedora 4 in the back end. I came up with a copy of that called Copy that runs purely on Valkyrie and Postgres, just so we can more easily test that environment. You might be curious about the name Copy. It's actually a term for a kind of a lonely outcropping of like a mountain, specifically in South Africa, that Hyraxes like to dwell in. It's just kind of a convenient name. Anyway, so in progress is a few things to wrap up, especially around actually getting files and images to show up in a universal viewer, excuse me. It's expected that this should be in some sort of beta release at some point during the Hyrax 4 cycle. A little bit more about that in a minute, but I think we are planning to have a Dev Congress in January, and I'm hopeful that after that we should be in good shape to actually get this into kind of beta status, MVP, you might say. Next slide. So one question I've gotten quite a few times is, what is happening with Fedora support, essentially? I'm hoping that this chart gives a general idea of the big idea, which is currently active Fedora and Fedora 4 is what's supported in Hyrax 3. That's going to be continued to be supported in Hyrax 4. And it will still be around in the next major version of Hyrax, which Hyrax 5, presumably, if there's no other major releases needed. But we would start deprecating its support at that point, with the intention to have it fully removed in a later major release. As I said, the version numbers there are subject to change. I don't want to get tied to, as we were a few years ago, where everyone was thinking, oh yes, Valkyrie will be Hyrax 3 or 4, whatever number it was. There could be other major changes that need to happen before then. We'll see. So along with that is the Valkyrie support is either work in progress and beta at this point, or in the case of the Fedora 6 backend, we're starting work on that. I mean, in theory, it should work transparently, or that there shouldn't be any real difference between having Postgres backing Hyrax or Fedora 6, thanks to the use of Valkyrie. That is yet to really be tested, but the plan is for there to be a major version of Hyrax that has both active Fedora support and Valkyrie support in a fully working capacity, and that's in order to ease transitions. And eventually, active Fedora be phased out. Next slide. So to make all that happen, it would be, I encourage everyone here to pledge maintenance hours for Hyrax. It's been a huge help in the past year. It doesn't have to be a constant thing, even just saying, yeah, me or my team will sign up for 1-2 week sprint. That's great. We can find things to focus on for that. It's been a huge help. As mentioned, we have a Dev Congress coming up participation in that can also count. So please consider doing that. It's very important for the future of Hyrax. Next. Finally, a quick mention that the new Rack servers, which are instances of Hyrax that are hosted on the public internet, have become really useful for doing our testing, and I think it's also been very helpful for various application product owners to see what Hyrax can do. The current host of those servers, DCE, has requested that they be moved to a new home, and so there's ongoing talks with the board and the community about where they will live and what the future of them is. But I just want to bring that up, the visibility of that up to the whole community here. And next, I think that's the end. Yeah. So I don't know if we're doing questions now or at the end of this whole session, but there's Julie and Maya's contact info. Please reach out, either email or Slack or whichever way you feel comfortable with. Thank you.
Great. Thank you both, Julie and Daniel, for giving that update. And I think we'll do questions at the end of the session. So why don't we move on to the next update, which would be the Hyku update. This would be Kevin Kochanski.
Hello, everybody. A lot of great updates from Julie and Daniel, but mostly, can I just say those were really beautiful slides. They make me want to take off this afternoon and go for a hike. But since I just said that in front of 100 people, I probably can't do that. So we've got a Hyku update from the community, and I will try to move through this pretty quickly, but hopefully informatively. What is Hyku? Darn you, autocorrect. Perennial issue. Anyway, Hyku is a repository solution that's based on the Hyrax engine, and it takes all those components of Samvera and delivers a relatively turnkey repository. Many of you might know that, but I always like to make sure that folks who are new to the community and to the conference to get the 30-second background. I have a few general updates. What's going on with Hyku releases. Back in May, we released Hyku 4. That included advanced theming, it included cross-tenant search, the ability to have multiple domains per tenant, configuration overhaul, and also a consolidated build and deploy environment with Hyrax. Our next release is going to be version 5, which should be in beta this week. It'll be out very soon. This includes an upgrade to Hyrax 3.4, which will bring in the analytics work that's been really anticipated by the Hyku folks. It'll have an upgrade of many of the underlying components. It turns the Bulkrax import-export tool on by default. And this is going to be a full version release because it requires data migration and the review of any overrides related. It's currently in testing and we are updating release notes. And as I said, that should be out very soon. Development is in progress already for what will be Hyku version 6. This is going to upgrade to Hyrax 4, Blacklight 7, and Rails 6 or 7, depending on timing. And it will likely require another database migration and thus a major version number. As Rob Kaufman notes, we're really burning through those version numbers, but luckily there are infinite numbers that we can use. It's also going to include some features like PDF, the ability to split PDFs out of the box, serverless IIIF support, and groups and permissions overhaul. We're going to try to get those into the next release. The Hyku interest group meets on Zoom the last Thursday of every month, except this month because we canceled it for Connect. But in this call, we do project updates. We get to hear from everybody that's working on a Hyku project. We discuss the roadmap alignment. So features that are coming into those projects, we decide whether they should go into the core code or not. We'll hear release updates and updates from the Hyku technical developer call that we have. And I just love to enforce that this is a great place for newcomers, people who are interested in haiku. I've heard a lot of folks that are exploring haiku this year. I invite them all and everybody else to just come and listen, come and ask questions. But it's a great place to hear the current users kind of interacting about what's coming in the pipeline. Was really excited. Many of us were able to meet up at Open Repositories in Denver in June, and for a lot of us, this was the first in-person conference that we had in a few years, and some of these people were meeting in person for the first time. It was a lot of fun, and it really reminded us what community was all about. So some quick updates on projects that are currently in development. University of Louisville's digital collections. SoftServe has completed work of adapting a Hyrax newspaper gem that will allow import of complex compound objects for them. We've also adapted code to allow for custom URLs, which are generated by a metadata field, custom download sizes, and more sort options for search results. Louisville is currently importing all of their content DM content into Hyku using the BulkRax tool. Ubiquity Press has some news. Over the summer and autumn, the Ubiquity team have been busy rolling out their repository platform that they have to new customers. This includes Lawrence Technological University, which was a new repository, University of North Georgia, and Boston College Law School were migrations from bpress. As well as migrating from bpress, onboarding work includes the creation of new work type models. Ubiquity is very happy that these customers, plus others that are in the pipeline, represent a strong vote of confidence in Hyku today. Additionally, there have been some personnel changes at Ubiquity, with Aaron McCullough appointed as product director, replacing product manager Elisa Barrett, and he's working from the US. Also, Delaney Burke was joining as the senior Ruby developer, and he works from Estonia. So welcome to the community to Delaney and Aaron. British Library's shared research repository in collaboration with CoSector and SoftServe also welcomes a new team member. So welcome to Graham Javon as a digital services specialist starting November 1st. Upcoming work in the next bit with CoSector and SoftServe includes the ability to import and export XML files, improvements to viewer functionality, including PDF viewer, 3D models, audio and video, also in-viewer search, and a metadata display in the UV. And they've also added the addition of open access status to the OAI PMH. They say that'll help them achieve full compliance with Plan S technical requirements. It'll also be necessary for anybody using Hyku that receives funding from a member of Coalition S. So it can be a requirement for a lot of global funding bodies, and that should be valuable to high potential adopters when it gets contributed back. Palani and Palsi continue iterative work on Hyku for consortia. They're running Hyku Commons as a multi-tenant repository service with an adaptable operational model across 4 participating consortia. Currently, there's 16 tenants in production and 39 in pilot or test. And just a reminder, this is in 1 instance of Hyku. There's continued focus on their user community to share expertise and strategize future development. Now in the 2nd year of the IMLS grant, Hyku for Consortia Removing Barriers to Adoption, the Hyku Commons User Experience Report was released in June 2022. They recently completed development sprints that focused on improving bulk import and export in Hyku with BulkRax. And they're currently working with SoftServe to upgrade Hyku Commons to the as yet released or yet to be released Hyku 5. And they are going to work on redesigning the Hyku Commons index homepage, and will be undertaking a sprint of high priority bugs and maintenance improvements that have been identified by their community. They're working on a draft operational model shared repository toolkit, and they will share that back and seek feedback from the community very soon. In the remainder of the 2nd year of their grant, they plan to complete a front-end user experience study and complete a series of additional development sprints, potentially addressing metadata customization and configuration, backend workflows, and front-end display. The Adventist Digital Library is sponsored by Andrews University in conjunction with SoftServe. They're migrating from an existing Islandora application. It's a dual tenant. One consists of citation only, works with no files. They're continuing this content migration and preparing for some additional work before they go live. And that's going to include some theming updates for them, updates to search filters, and full text search that includes highlighted search terms in the viewer. And they'll be utilizing Abby for OCR instead of Tesseract. University of Tennessee in Knoxville is a newer player in Hyku, which we're really excited about. It's a multi-tenant Hyku for digital collections in an institutional repository. Current work with SoftServe includes initial Hyrax 3 upgrade into Hyku, which also provided the work for the upcoming Hyku 5 release. The installation of Allenson Flex for flexible metadata is local to their Hyku instance. And there have been some improvements in accessibility and also upgrades to the III manifest gem that'll make it IIIF version 3 compliant. And some odds and ends. Just a reminder that there are hosted solutions out there. Ubiquity Press has U repositories and SoftServe has Hyku Up. And both of those have information on websites where you can learn more. And follow us, follow Hyku. There's always news, there's always community activity. I'm happy that there's usually 15 people or more on the interest group calls. Hyku.samvera.org is an informational site. Samvera Slack has a Hyku channel. If you're not on Samvera Slack, you should be. So go to the wiki and request to join there. We have a Google group, more details on the interest group, which is the last Thursday of the month at 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 Eastern, 4:30 UK. There's details on that on the Samvera wiki as well. And the developer call is the second Thursday of the month at 9 Pacific, though that's been kind of touch and go, but we're looking forward to some new folks potentially joining those for conversation. And since I failed to introduce myself at the beginning of this, just a reminder, I'm Kevin Kochanski. I am client liaison at SoftServe, and I work with the Hyku community. And that's everything I've got. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your conference.
All right, thank you, Kevin. So we'll do the last update, which is the Valkyrie update by Alex Dunn, if you're ready.
I am, yes. I don't have slides. I'm going to try and keep this relatively brief. I'm Alex Dunn. I am the digital library architect at UCSB and the product owner for Valkyrie. Most of you probably know what Valkyrie is, and Daniel talked about it a bit during the Hyrax update, but it is a piece of software that a repository can use to allow it to talk to different backends, both for metadata and indexing, like a Solr search engine, or for data storage, like Postgres or Fedora, without having to worry about the particulars of the backend it uses. So Valkyrie serves as an intermediary. So you just tell Valkyrie what you want to do, and Valkyrie handles talking to whichever backend you've configured. So it kind of abstracts away from the particulars of what you're doing. And we are currently coming up on our 3.0 release about a year ago, actually. Around the 2021 Connect, we had our first 3.0 beta, and we've been kind of finishing up feature work, finalizing things, squashing bugs in preparation for a real release. In the year since, the big kind of items have been Faraday 2 support from Trey Pendragon, who is the tech lead for Valkyrie. He and Carla Galarza also brought in Rails 7 support. And Tamsin Johnson added the ability to configure multiple storage adapters. Also, Margaret Kibbe added Ruby 3 support just recently, and that allowed us to tag our first release candidate for Valkyrie 3.0. Those are kind of the big things. We don't have any kind of flashy new features. It's mostly been getting things up to speed and making sure we're ready to push this new release out the door. And we've just begun making sure to test it with Hyrax to make sure 3.0 is compatible, because currently Hyrax uses the older Valkyrie 2, which is, as you might have guessed, a little out of date now that we've been kind of very slowly working on 3.0. So those are the big things. Daniel also talked about Fedora 6 support. So he covered kind of the gist of it, which is that the ideas are all there. Currently, Valkyrie is passing tests, the tests that we have written for our Fedora adapter against Fedora 6. So as far as we know, it works is kind of a good way of putting it, but we don't know anyone who is using Valkyrie and Fedora 6 in production. So there's a lot of stress testing that still needs to be done. So if you are someone using Fedora 6 and you're interested in Valkyrie, we would love to have you join us and help test it out and make sure that it's robust. So I think that is everything I have. So I think I'll just end it there. Thank you all.